a word we need to talk about is a numerical expression. So in here, you can hear almost the word number. So numerical just is another word for it's made up of only numbers. And an expression is something that does not have an equal sign, no equal sign. It's just the problem. No answer, no equal sign. So a numerical expression will only have numbers and operations, no equal sign, no variables. So here are a couple examples of numerical expressions. 7 plus 8 times 2 squared. All of these are numbers and operations. Here's another example, 25 minus 16 plus 9. Only numbers and operations. So let's take a closer look at these numerical expressions. So every time we have an expression and you have parts of it that are added or subtracted, so this only is true when we are adding or subtracting, we call each of those parts a term. So this problem here, we have 16 plus 7. It's an expression, a numerical expression, only numbers and operations, and I can see that it was added. So on either side of the add sign, here's one term, here's another term. So these are called terms. So we have two total terms, 1, 2, and they are added together. So these terms are going to help us look for parts of the problem that we need to work with. So let's look at a few more examples here. So we want to know how many terms do they have and what did they do with the terms. So remember, terms, we're looking for adding and subtracting signs. Multiply and divide are not terms, they are factors. So that is and quotients, so that is something different there. So adding and subtracting, so I can see I've got 1 here and 1 here. So every other part of these things are terms. So here we have 1, 2, 3 terms. So this has 3 terms. And the first ones were added together. So the terms, we have 8, 5, and 4. The first 2 were added together. The next 2 were subtracted. So what are the terms? How did they get there? 3 total. Here they are. How did we get there? So let's go ahead and try this one. So write down how many terms, and then what are the terms and how did they get those? So I can see my plus sign here. So I like to circle those so I can see each side of them. So the terms, we have 2 total. They are 9 and 5. And to get those 2 terms, they were added together. Okay, let's try a trickier one here. So go ahead and write this problem down. So 6 plus 7 times 4. Then we want to go and circle any of the adding and subtracting operations. So everything on this side is 1 term, and everything on this side is 1 term. So we can see here, every time, if I have 1 add or subtract sign, that means I have 1 more term, 1, 2. I had 1 add or subtract sign, so I had 2 terms. When I have 2 add or subtract signs, then we had 3 terms. So we've always got 1 more term than we have add or subtract operations. So here I have the term of, so I have 2 terms, so 2 terms. This first term is a 6, and the second term is 7 times 4. So these are not terms individually because they're not added or subtracted. So if you remember, When we have 7 and 4, those are actually factors. 7 times 4 is 28, and 28 has factors of 7 and 4. So together they make a term. Separately, they are factors. So two terms. The term is 6, and 7 times 4 is a term. So one term is 7 times 4, but then separately, 7 times 4 are factors. So let's try one more of those. So we have 3/4 minus 2/3. So go ahead and circle any add or subtract operations that you see. So I can see here that we have a minus sign, a subtract symbol. So that means I have one term here and one term here. So together we have two terms. I have a term of 3/4. I have a term of 2/3. So those are the two terms here. Now, when I break each term up, this one is going to give me a quotient. So even though it's a fraction, yes, 3/4 is a fraction. 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. That's a quotient. So this is one term that is a quotient. And this is one term that is a quotient. So when I do 2 divided by 3 and get 0.666 forever, that is the answer to a division problem. So when we multiply, they're called factors. When we have fractions, this is really just a divide symbol, and we call it quotients. So circle your add or subtract signs. Everything between those is a term, and then you can tell me were the terms added, were there factors, were there quotients. So I want you to go ahead and try task 1 here. So task 1 just went over those same vocabulary words that we did, so those numerical expressions. And then you are going to go through and read the expression. If you need to write it down and circle how many add or subtract signs it has, look for the parts. So if we did this first one together, we would circle the plus sign, look for the parts on either side, tell me what they are, how did they get there? So you go ahead and go through each of those. Part C has first think about this expression, and then just think about the part of it 4 times 5 and select all that are true. So go ahead and try out task 1 and come back when you are ready to do task 2.